sector. He's a sports consultant and a lawyer by profession. Ngaro Kamuye, good to see you, man. Long time, have you been?
It is good to see you, and it's good to be back. It's been a while.
What have you been up to?
Of course, we were joking off here that you must have run into money, and that's not for me anymore. But yeah, we're still.
Don't mistake my boyfriend
for money. But yeah, we're still involved in sport, trying to change the narrative in Kenya, trying to make people understand that it is a business, that it's a career option, that it's an industry in itself. If you look at small numbers, of course, before we get into what we're going to discuss, if you look at small numbers like the European Union, 2% of the employment or workforce is in sporting organization. 2% of the people employed in the European Union is in the workforce. That's a hell lot of people. So yeah, it's tough, obviously, because we still don't look at sports as anything. Unajua samanga wacha mchezo. Unajua you have parents telling their kids wacha mchezo bana we soma. It's difficult trying to change the narrative, but look, it's going to happen. There have been milestones in Kenya to make us believe that first we are a breadbasket in terms of talent and in very many sports. So, you know, Max, the funny thing is that if you drive outside Nairobi on a Sunday, guaranteed, out of any of the highways, Mombasa Road, Wayakiwe, Thika Road, and you drive now to what we call rural, or what people call rural Kenya, guaranteed you'll find a sport being played. Yeah. Either there's a football game going on, there's a volleyball game going on, something is happening. You know, that's people's lives. They leave church, they go play sport. So all you're trying to do is create the narrative that it can be an employer. And for it to be an employer, then of course it has to be run professionally and like a business.
You and I believe that sports is huge, and it's indeed huge globally. And Toto, this man believes that, you know when elections are about to happen in Kenyan sporting circles, there are people who come seeking to get elected in offices, and they say that, you know, as a former footballer, I deserve being elected. For Ngarwa, you don't need to be a former sportsman to be a good manager. Unakubaliana na hiyo?
I think nakubaliana naye, lakini kwanza nitajitetea mwanzo kama mimi. Ukiangalia kama Cameroon, Samuel Eto'o alipewa ile nafasi ya kuongoza Cameroon. Yani tuliona amecheza vizuri, anajua maslahi ya wachezaji, anajua kitu ambacho wanataka, ameingia hapo. At least tumeona Cameroon wamehost hizi tournament, tumeona Cameroon wanafanya vizuri, na huenda pia wakacheza katika World Cup qualifiers. Na on the other hand, nimejitetea kwamba nakubaliana naye kwamba mchezaji ama yule ambaye amecheza anajua maslahi ya wachezaji hafai kuwa hapo. Lakini kwa upande mwingine pia usichague tu mtu kwa sababu amekuja anasema kwamba yeye ni team blue, you team red. Ili kuweza kuingia katika nafasi hizo. Kwa hivyo nisha kwamba ukienda pale chagua mtu ambaye unaona kwamba in the next 5 years mkija kumuuliza amefanya nini, at least unaona amejenga stadiums ama amesukuma ama vijana wameenda pro kucheza sijui Liverpool, Arsenal. Kwa hiyo kifanya hizo elections pia tufikirie kwamba,
lakini unajua hata ukiangalia Samuel Eto'o mwenyewe, Samuel Eto'o ameingia juzi.
Yeah.
Si ati alikuwa huko ati Cameroon akishinda bid ya kufanya AFCON. Yeah. Ameingia tu juzi. Na sikatai, anaelewa maslahi ya wachezaji. But the truth is, there's a very big difference between a player and a manager. And that's the biggest problem we have. Mark, how many times do you sit down and say, do you remember Jose Mourinho's playing career? No, he's never played football, but he's one of the best managers. It's a very big line. There's a very big difference between what you do on the pitch and the administration part. And I have no problem, by the way, don't get me wrong, I have no problem with ex-players being in part of management, but we should not give them on the basis of them being former players. Yeah. It should be that they are good managers. That's all I say. You remember just before CAF elections, we were talking about Patrick Motsepe. Exactly. About Patrice Motsepe. He's the owner of Mamelodi Sundowns. He's the owner of Blue Bulls, the rugby team. And Patrice Motsepe is essentially what we have the discussions here. Patrice Motsepe made his money in mining. Granted, he's tied in. He's married No. Cyril Ramaphosa has married Patrice Motsepe's sister. So there's the intricacies, and like I'm telling you, he made his money off mining.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, Cyril Ramaphosa also made a lot of money through mining. Individually, he's a very rich person. But you have now the likes of Patrice Motsepe who are forward thinking. So they realize, okay, sports is a business. Mamelodi Sundowns has been dominating the South African Football Association for a very long time now. And then he moves on to the CAF level. Max, I will be very honest. Na hii hata siwezi feature. In between 2010 and 2022, I think I watched two Cups of Nations. I've watched this particular one, hii yenye imeisha, and maybe the Zambia one, 2012, the one Zambia one. Those are the only two I've watched, and it's because for me it lost its flair. It lost its. You saw a lot of sponsors pull out. It was organized. It was very shambolic, in all honesty, the way it was organized. But watching this year's tournament, you can see there's some injection of some professionalism. You know, you can see Patrice Motsepe is actually doing something. Cameroon, in terms of GDP, guys, is nowhere close to Kenya. But the truth is, when you looked at that tournament, it looked very professional. True or false? I mean, we have all our big boys playing in Europe who now want to come.
Yeah.
The Sadio Manes, the Thomas Partey's, the Mo Salahs. They want to now come back and play for them.
But those high-profile footballers never gave an excuse of their failure of getting released by them.
No, they never.
Like the way Matip did the other time.
Yeah, they never gave.
Tuliona Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp akisema that some
there's some tournament. No,
was it a joke?
but sasa tuto ukweli wa mambo ni nini? Ukweli wa mambo is, did you see the backlash that Jurgen Klopp got?
Yes.
When
he rescinded
his comments.
Yeah, sure.
That if indeed the African Cup of Nations was a small, truth be told, if Jurgen Klopp made that statement 4, 5, 6 years ago, it would have slid.
Yeah.
No one would have really made a comment. It's just because of the impetus that the tournament has right now, if you ask me. And it goes back to issues of governance. For a long time, the FIFA president never wanted to be involved with the African Cup of Nations. Now we saw he was there for the final. And those are the things we're talking about in terms of administration. And like you've rightly put it, when you have guys like Patrice Motsepe getting into governance, these are people who've run successful businesses. It's going to be challenging for him. It's not going to be easy because you're dealing, first, it's CAF. Second, he's from sub-Saharan Africa. And we know the dynamics of sports on the African continent, not only related to football, also in across the board. But the funny thing is that recently, this past week, I was talking to somebody who was a former vice president Africa for the Motocross Association. And he was telling me, even in motocross, it was the same thing. It was the same thing about Francophone countries dominating the governance. So it's not going to be easy for him. But the truth and the fact of the matter is that first, he comes with the backing of obviously the South African government, but he has the support. He's a successful business person himself, so he does understand how to run organizations. And the way it's looking, the truth is, FIFA would rather have Patrice Motsepe than, what was that guy's name? Y254. Yeah. Yes, they'd rather have a guy like Patrice Motsepe because he's able to bring in, I can imagine the money Total poured.
Wow.
In terms of sponsorship.
Yeah, I noticed.
They've been sponsors for a long time. Yes. Initially it was MTN, I think. The time it was the MTN African Cup of Nations. Then Total came in. But me, what shocked me, even the big one, is one day I was watching one of those games and I saw TikTok.
Yeah, by the way,
it was one of the sponsors. Yeah. And my head was like, TikTok is sponsoring CAF. It must have, it makes sense. It does make sense for them from a commercial perspective. There's no sponsor, that's what we're talking of here. There's no sponsor who puts in the money just to be there. It must be
value for my money.
It's value for money, and you know, Africa has the largest number of young population, fastest growing population, fastest growing in terms of internet penetration. So of course it's going to make sense for TikTok. But like I'm saying, it's only people like Patrice Motsepe who can be able to realize that.
A good point you've made in terms of support Patrice Motsepe is receiving from South African government led by their president.
His brother-in-law.
Yes. Who is in charge of Sekafa, having replaced another Kenyan in the name of Nicholas Musonyi, the Secretary General of Sekafa. Does Kenya follow suit and replicate what South African government in terms of offering support to their
I think I got a chance to talk to him wakati wa michuano ya Sekafa when Vihiga Queens hosted the Sekafa Championships. Nikamuuliza, uko sure hii tournament umeanzisha si itakuja mara moja iende? Tukaniambia hapana, ni kitu ambacho tunaanza na we are going to learn from our mistakes. And maybe from that, I hope they learned, and maybe in the near future wakati wa hizi tournament kama hizi za madem zitakuwa zinafanyika, I hope they learned and it's going to be big and better. Kwa hiyo let's all hata usiende mbali South Africa, kuja tu hapa TZ. What are they doing? Simba, Young, Azam wanafanya nini? Ukiangalia most of our players from Kenya wamekimbia wameenda wapi? Muda TZ. Umeona Josh venye anapiga luku siku hizi?
Anachapa luku.
Umeona Muguna venye anapiga luku? Inaonyesha kwamba our players kama Kenya walikuwa wanateseka. They've gone to Tanzania where football inakuwa valued and someone is ready to sacrifice, invest kwa football akijua at the end of the day is going to be.
So back home our players handouts.
I think peanuts wanapata peanuts.
Ni handouts tu tunaangalia. AFC iko shida inakimbilia Msalia. Gori iko shida wanakimbilia Tinga. Come on, we can't be thinking. There's an interview Mohamed Duji not BBC iko nyingine ambayo he's talking about just after he had acquired a stake in Simba. And he's saying, look, all I'm trying to do is what Roman Abramovich has done. He's a private owner, he's an individual, ameingiza pesa Chelsea. Hiyo pesa sasa ndio inarun. Unajua, the truth and the fact of the matter, what people do not know about a sporting organization, and I mean a pro sporting organization, Max, is of the workforce, the technical side is a third. What we see, the coach, trainers, players, that's a third of the workforce. For proper sporting organization, that's a third of the workforce. The 2/3 is the people behind the scenes. It's the people taking the tickets. It's the people cleaning the stadiums. It's the people working on the stadiums. It's the people collecting the data. It's the people doing all that stuff. Let me give you a story. I was talking to a guy, a buddy of mine. He's an assistant coach at Nondis. He had a stint at London Harlequins, and he was telling me that at the training of London Harlequins, training Max, not at the game, training. First, you know, these organizations, they never train. Even the Man United, Arsenal's, they never. That's another thing we have to change. They have a whole training unit.
Yeah.
The pro just for training.
Like Man United as
Carrington, exactly.
Yeah.
So one of the training place for other things, he was telling me that a training session. So you have 2 sessions. So in the morning is gym work. It's basically now working on your strength, conditioning, explosiveness, all that. And then afternoon is when you have the set place in the field. He told me first, a training session does not go more than 1.5 hours. Let us start there. But more importantly for me, the thing that really shocked me is that a training session has 8 cameras and 4 drones.
A training session
has 8 cameras and 4 drones. By the time wewe kama mchezaji umemaliza kucheza, unaenda computer room. You have your SD, no, you're given your SD card, your memory card, yenye iko na shida footage yako, shida za this is what you need to They've already analyzed everything, washaichop. Wamekukatia, wamekuambia sasa ngaro hapa na shida yako iko, go work on it, we'll talk about it kesho. You think that thing is cheap? You think hiring all those data analysts is cheap? You think hiring all those editors is cheap? That's what pro sports is. That is London Harlequins. Can you imagine what it is at Man United or Arsenal?
Wow. So pro sports is massive investment.
It's money. I was seeing just before the Super Bowl, you know, this stats about money.
Yes.
Yeah. The Cincinnati Bengals payroll yao tu adile salary $194 million a year. Payroll. So are you going to do that off sponsors? Let's be honest. You can't. We have to do private investment.
And you see, we are paying sports in terms of corporate and sponsors coming on board because just like you say, it's symbiotic. It has to be better. It has to be human. Get something in
fact, if I were administrators right now, before we get into our conversation for FIFA, because it also ties into the manning, if I was administrator, if I was a sports administrator today, I would be focusing on bringing in private investment, getting the Patrice Motsepes of Kenya to invest in your organizations, the sponsors will come. You meet your basic costs, and basic costs we mean salaries, we mean easy editing, easy vitu tunaongea, easy cameras, training grounds, nini. Meet your basic costs, sponsors will come.
On that note, let's just take a short commercial break and come with our discussion we are looking forward to. Don't go away.
Y254. Imagine.
Good afternoon and welcome back on the touchline on Y254. Let's continue with that discussion regarding Kenyan suspension by FIFA. On the show, I'm still with Ngarwa Kamuya, sports consultant and lawyer, and Totoa Rege, the reputable sports analyst. And straight into it, Ngarwa, what do you assess of a suspension by World Football Governing Body FIFA? You saw Gianni Infantino, big man himself, speaking and shocking authoritative.
Yeah. The fact that he's the one who talked shocked me. And the reason it shocked me is because the last time we were banned, it was, what was that guess? It was called Jerome 204.
It was 204 to 6 to 6.
It was 626 actually. It was called Jerome somebody. He's the one who banned us. It wasn't Sepp Blatter who was talking. So the fact that the FIFA president is talking is really shocking me, one. Two, I'm not shocked. It was coming.
It was coming.
It was coming.
Everyone saw it coming.
Yeah, the minute you have government intervention, a ban is coming. The minute the national government intervenes, there's a ban coming. Now, if you ask me, I think the Ministry of Sports handled it wrongly. Because if I was going to go that direction, then I would make sure I have FIFA backing. I would make sure I have CAF backing. Clearly, they didn't have backing from anyone. I would actually be convincing CAF, look, this is the reason why we're doing it. I'd be convincing FIFA, this is the reason why we're doing it. We gave these guys money, because that's the main reason why Nick Mondo was removed. We gave this guy money, this guy cannot account for it. Personally, I have my questions whether it's an issue to do with money. I have always thought it's something to do with the larger political game, because we won't mention it, but anyone who deals with football knows what they say about Nick Mwendo and who backs him. So I think from a larger perspective, there's a political angle being played. One. Two, did you just discover he was stealing money or he was misappropriating money? You knew about it. If indeed it was happening, you knew about it, you just didn't want to do anything about it. So it goes back to what we keep on saying. I'm not saying I'm not saying he's not to blame in anything. I was, at one time, I was on your sister station just before when they decided to wrap up the KPL season.
Yes.
Prematurely. And he needs to go for serious PR classes, public relation classes, because he came out fighting, he came out very arrogant, he came out, and that was a big, you don't talk like that if you're the FKF president. My thinking, how do we curb this thing? We have talked about private ownership repeatedly, and even in the previous section we've talked about it. We can't do private ownership just yet at the national sporting organization level or national governing body level, but there's something I came across that really I got happy when I read about it. So in Spain there are 4 clubs that are still member clubs. They are not LLCs. They're not limited liability companies. There's Espanyol, there's Atletico Madrid, and then there's Barcelona and Real Madrid. I've actually seen, I'm almost certain this is Santiago Bernabeu.
It looks like one.
It looks like, yeah. But, and Real Madrid. Now, you know how they curb all this nonsense in the politics and all that? Because it's politics. The truth and the fact of the matter is our sports are dogged by politics. I heard you guys talking in the first session, if you talk about cricket, Kenya, everything, it's politics. Politics as a result of what Toto said. She's very right. Ni pesa watu wanangojea. Wataka hizo allowances. She's very right that when 90%, me I'll be very honest, it's only rugby I've seen. When 90%
delegation
of the unions, mini rugby pekee nimeona where the officials are less than than the players. All the others, it's officials who are more than the players.
During international competition.
Watu wameendea, in rugby we used to call it alaguash. Watu wameendea nani, padiem. But anyway, how do we curb this? Now, when those member clubs are still in existence, Spain passed a law in the early 90s and said, if you're going to be an official of these clubs, you have to be able to guarantee 15% of the club's debt. 15% of the clubs. So like now, Barcelona is in problems with their debt. Juan Laporta can guarantee 15%. Yeye kivyake kama as an individual. Now, if we had such a law for the national sporting organization, hatungekuwa na watu wa mchezo.
True.
Wajua, we wouldn't get guys who are coming in to enrich themselves. We would have proper governance. Because me, I know if I'm Ngarwa and I'm coming to become the FKF president, and the FKF has a debt of 500, 600 million shillings, I have to be able to guarantee 50, which is 90 million. If I don't have 90 million, first, what am I coming to do there? But second, kakiumana, your 90 million ni mimi natoa.
That ought to have happened because when Nick Mwendo was getting elected in 2016, alikuja kama, he said himself in various press conferences that he's inheriting an office that iko na madeni because Sam Nyamweya aliacha madeni, si ndio?
I think anyway, nitasema mimi kwamba wakati alikuwa anachaguliwa mwanzoni, watu wengi, najua hata wewe ulikubaliana kwamba tumeleta
he
meant well for Kenyan football, ameletwa mtu mzuri ambaye atakuwa anaangalia maslahi ya wachezaji, but first term ikaisha, second term I think kulikuwa na issues, uliona wengi wakipigana baada ya hizo elections kwamba Mwendo hakufaa kuwepo, tukasema maybe tumpatie second term tuone kama ataweza, lakini at the end of the day, benefit of doubt. Kwa hivyo at the end of the day tumeona kwamba actually amekuwa in office for I think sijui ni 6 months kama if I'm not wrong, because it's not long kwa sababu alichaguliwa tu juzi. Kwa hivyo inaonyesha kwamba it's just ni personal interest watu wako nazo wengi pale ofisini, but at the end of the day should be accountable for zile pesa ambazo umepewa na ministry, and maybe kama FIFA ama CAF ama SECAF amekupatia pesa, should be accountable. So I think that's where the government inakuja in kutaka kujua kwamba ile transparency iko wapi, zile pesa tulizopatia zimeenda wapi. So I think hapo ndio kuna issue, I think hapo ndio kuna mvutano,
hapo ndio tashwishi iko. Lakini unajua sasa the big swali kubwa sasa ni, and if you ask me the way I look at it is, for me the biggest example is what I've seen in rugby, is what I saw in rugby. You saw years in which and those days it was considered bado an elite sport. We saw an era in which the officials were basically people who had done well for themselves in their careers. You know, from the days of George Karaoke, Ambassador Dennis Awori being chairman, Richard Omwela, renowned lawyer, being chairman of Kenya Rugby Union.
Richard Omwela one,
yes. Richard si ya pili, ile ya kwanza. Then Mwangi Muthee came in, and Mwangi Muthee sasa kaleta pesa wazimu. Even himself, he was a successful businessman.
The Kenya under which Kenya Sevens to join Singapore Sevens?
No, Singapore Sevens was as a result of the work that had been done. You know, you don't. When you look at France,
yes,
for example, winning the 2018 World Cup, it is not because of the work they did in 2017.
It is the structures that had been put in place
prior. It started after ile yenye ilichomeka 2010 when kina Patrice Evra was striking and everything. Remember, they went back to the drawing board and they said, okay, fine, let's phase off Kina Henry and these guys. Let's now start bringing in a younger group. Then they brought in Didier Deschamps, and they gave Deschamps time. They told him, Sawa. I don't even think they made it for the 2012 Euro.
There is a tournament they failed qualifying.
You start building from there. Then 2014, you're eliminated by Germany in the quarterfinals. Hivyo tu pole pole. By the time 2018 nafika, nyinyi sasa ndo magwiji. Same thing with Germany in 2014. It's not because of the work they started doing in 2013. It takes time. So, yes, and look, not to discredit the work of the late Benjamin Aimba and the people who put in the work in 2016, not to discredit their work, but the truth and the fact of the matter is that the foundation was laid by the Mwangi Muthee years when he was chairman. Now, he came in, he brings in money. Because we don't have these laws where we're saying 15%, whatever, any Tom, Dick and Harry can run for office. As long as I can whip up votes. And whipping up votes is what in Kenya?
Delegates.
Delegates.
Sarova,
Sarova, Nini, as long as I can whip up votes, that's all I need. So I'm whipping up votes to go in to eat. I want to get tickets to go for 7 seconds. That's the problem that we have in Kenya.
Not for player empowerment.
It's not for player empowerment. It's not for the betterment of the sport. And that's the thing. You know, let me tell you guys, the good thing about FKF, it's permanently in loss. It's permanently performing badly as a business. That's a good thing about FKF. Because let me tell you, if money checks into FKF today, with the structures that we have there, mtaona visanga. Watu wakianza kuonelea doiko, no big money, not this one that they're talking about nowadays. I was hearing, I don't know if the figures are right, I was hearing like, FKF needs their budget is about like 1 billion shillings a year. I could be wrong. 1 billion shillings is still about quite a bit.
Almost.
Yeah, that's money.
Yes.
Max, if they're able to meet their budgets of 1 billion without any problems, without going to government, yani pesa sasa inaingia FKF. Wewe sasa ndio utaona sasa visanga.
What should they do in their own capacity to ensure that they meet and be in position to...
I would be making an amendment to the Sports Act with regard to the officials. And I would even raise it. I wouldn't do it like Spain. I wouldn't say 15%. You should be able to guarantee 30-40% of the organization's debt if you're going to run for office. So that you have to declare now your bank statements. Tuone kama wewe ni mzito. Excuse the pun. Tuone kama wewe ni mzito bana, unaezana na hii mambo. Kakiumana utaezana na hii mambo ama vipi?
And right? maybe nikuulize, ukiangalia saizi tumepewa ban. Na ile FKF ambayo ilitoka, kurudi itakuwa shida. Na kuvunja hii wale warudi pia itakuwa shida. Maybe sisi kama country ama the government ifanye nini so that tusipate tena ban nyingine na FIFA.
Mimi tunasema kitu cha kwanza.
Tusipate sasa ban. Tumepewa suspension.
Mimi kitu cha kwanza ambacho ningefanya ni amendment to the Sports Act. This is what I'm telling you about these laws. Make it very clear that if you're going to be running for a national sporting organization, you have to guarantee a certain amount of the debt. You will see that this cohort of people who try to run organizations, immediately, it decreases by like
so which
80%.
Means interest will diminish.
Oh yeah. Ushaijuliza mbona ukiendanga Spain, Florentino Perez won La Porta. Florentino
Real Barcelona yao tu.
Why are they always there? Sinijua watu wanado. Pesa wako nayo, so wanaweza guarantee.
They can meet the threshold.
They can meet the threshold. And even, you know, there are small things. We were talking about Patrice Motsepe in the previous segment. Motsepe akiingia bank leo aseme ati CAF iko na shida ya pesa. Si bank itamsikiza. Because maybe the impetus, because of what he brings to the table, because of the person that he is. No offense to Nick, but even Nick, where is he going to walk in and say ati tuko na shida? You know, no, and I'm saying, no offense. We just need to stop this politicking. I'll give you a story. There's these member clubs in Kenya. There's a member club I won't mention, where an international consortium wanted to give them debt of about $90 million. That's 9 billion Kenyan shillings.
My goodness.
Just to run their operations because they saw where they're located, the programs they have. This one is a very good thing. And they said, this one we are ready to give money. Then they asked for the ownership structure. They saw it's a member club. They said, Madapana, we cannot think in our money here. Ukiwauliza mbona, very simple. If I'm sitting, I think in 9 billion in this club, it becomes a political organization.
True.
There's no difference between that and ODM.
True.
I'll start now, even me, Ngaro, and I look for budget to campaign to become chairman.
Oh, yeah.
So that I have access to that 9 billion. So those are the issues, like I'm saying, that need to be controlled. And by the way, if you go to each and every member club in this country, you will hear a story of officials kukula. See national sporting organizations.
That's why there is scrambling for positions.
That's why they scramble for positions. Membership subscriptions daily. So the first thing, to answer your question, meaning Fanya, no amendment to the Sports Act. If you're going to run for the executive committee for any sporting organization, you have to be able to guarantee 30-40% of the organization's debt. Immediately you remove the people who are coming to do nothing.
Oh.
Right?
From legal perspective, as a lawyer, I've seen, barristers standing by Nick Mwendwa in the name of former LSK President Nelson Mutula Kilonzo Jr. saying that, government ought to have listened to their submissions on the floor of the House for them not getting itself into this quagmire.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do they mean?
It's true, because whatever you want to say, whether, like I'm saying, we're not absolving Nick of any blame, but whatever you want to say, government was wrong in the way they handled this issue of FKF. That's a simple truth.
After getting rid of Nick Mwendwa and, dissolving FKF, what should they have done?
I wouldn't even have gone that side. I would not have dismissed Nick Mwendwa arbitrarily, if that was what I wanted to do. If Nick was the person I wanted to get off, I would not have done it the way they did it. I would have done investigations. I would have done commissions of inquiries. I would have done where he has to come and jitetea. He has to come and say, Minilifanya hivi. In your government, you have access to all this information. You know what is done wrong. You know what is misappropriated, if indeed is misappropriated. Find a robust reason. Don't start howling him to DCI and all these other places. Take time. And comb through all these documents, such that by the time you come up with a decision that this guy has to leave, it's actually something that has been carefully thought out. But more importantly is what I said at the beginning. Kama hiyo ndio njia ambayo unataka kufuata, hakikisha kwamba umeelewana na CAF na umeelewana na FIFA. Hakikisha kuwa those two organizations know.
You're reading from the same script?
Yes. The two organizations know that, okay, fine, this is happening in Kenya. And for the betterment of the game, we need to support what the Kenyan government is doing. And frankly speaking, Ministry of Sports, you don't have a contact at FIFA. You don't have a contact at CAF.
And on that basis, we're going to sympathize with Toto. Our women's team failed to play against Uganda for the showcase that is set to happen in Morocco, which means Kenya won't be taking part. How do ladies feel outside there, by the way?
But on the other hand, kwa hiyo swali ya mongelea, I think pia Nick Mwendwa, yani sijui nitatumia term gani, I think alikuwa na pride. Pride that in that government inataka kitu kama hii. Kama juzi the other day Amina akimtoa in office. Unajua yeye alienda akasema huo ni upuzi, huo ni ujinga, excuse my terms. But inaonyesha kwamba hii ni government imekutoa ofisini. Then wewe unakuja na kiburi na pride that huwezi toka. Who are you? Unajua pia ni kama government ilikuwa nasema huo ni kama tuacha tukuonyesha venye kunaendana.
So it was a fight
it
for
was
the
a fight
egos.
For the egos. I think kila mtu pia alikuwa tuna egos. Na ukiangalia pia ukisema kwamba caretaker committee is not recognized by FIFA ama CAF, angalia Tusker walicheza, I think ilikuwa Champions League, CAF walicheza CAF under who? The caretaker committee. Kenya kutolewa kwa AFCON qualifiers walikuwa under who? Sijui ni Burundi ama Rwanda, walikuwa under the caretaker committee. I think kuna vitu ambavyo vinafanyika hapa ambavyo vieleweki. Caretaker committee ilikuwepo hizi timu zikicheza. Mbona FIFA saizi inakuja kuingilia kati? Anyway, that aside.
Maybe FIFA was taking time and to interrogate.
Kwa hiyo tuangalie kama Madem Harambee Stars, Harambee Starlets, ukiangalia walikuwa na ile morale kupiga Sudan 7-1 Nyayo Stadium, walijua kwamba after hii ni kwenda kuua Uganda alafu we in. Actually, I even spoke to Lilian before she left for Paris, Lilian Aworo kutoka Viga Queens. Akaniambia kwamba mimi by the way, saizi naona tuko na timu nyingine wazimu, tuko na timu nyingine iko imejiseti, tuko sawa, saizi tunaenda kufight kuingia World Cup. Na ukiangalia Madem walikuwa very very disappointed, mpaka mwingine wanaanza kuwalaani au viongozi ambao walitoka FKF. Madem by the way walisikia vibaya sana. Manake that was the place ambao wangechukua ku showcase their talent. Angalia kama Viga Queens wakicheza CAF juzi. Two players wameenda, anaitwa Lila na World goalkeeper ambaye kwa Paris, alafu na Gentrix Shikango pia ametoka, alafu kuna fununu kwamba Teresa Ingesha pia huenda akaenda. Kwa hivyo ilikuwa
platform to showcase
their talent and wapate do mazee, at least ile ya kulipa, si peanuts wanapata kwa hizi timu zingine. Kwa hiyo Madem walikuwa very disappointed.
And I have a friend of mine who was telling me that the Starlets had been put in detention at Kasarani. Wamewekwa tu.
Hawataki kusema.
The government is not assuring them that they will play against Uganda. Game ikafika. We saw retired Judge Aaron Ringera going to address the nation and saying that it's a pity that Kenya could not play against Uganda due to a name from a defunct federation. Laura, I think I agree with you. The government also ought to have done better than how they did.
Oh, yeah. They did. They this one you can't fault. This is a government cock-up. They should have done better. If indeed your interest is sport, you don't handle it that way. And that's why I'm saying, for me, you can't be interested in sports and that's how you handle it.
And I think pia umeleta point fiti kwamba tuweke watu pale ambao wanapenda sport bana. Usikue pale tunapenda tudo. Kama if tumeka watu pale ambao wanapenda sport, unapenda ball yenyewe, unakufia ball. Maziwezi fanya decisions
zingine. What's the yardstick of measuring passion?
That's the thing. You see, I mean, passion for sport is important. Passion for whatever sport is important because that's the only way you push whatever intentions and goals that you have for the sport. But it goes back to Kenya to listen. Management is everything. You can have all the passion for sport or for a sport, but if you don't have management skills, that becomes a very big issue. But anyway, to your point, like you've said, mimi shida yangu kubwa ni serikali. Walikosea, the way they handle this thing, they handle it the wrong way.
I've seen people now advocating for normalization committee in place made by former FKF President Sam Nyamweya. I saw him talking about, FIFA bringing in a normalization committee. What's the difference between normalization committee, caretaker committee, and interim committee?
I'm not saying categorically, I'm not saying that I know exactly what it is, but I'm just off the terms themselves. Caretaker is more interim, for lack of a better word. It's just before you get as you're steadying the ship. A normalization committee has some sort of definition. You're working towards something now. Caretaker, you're all over the place. You're trying to steady the ship. Normalization committee, you're working towards something. And even in the 2006 ban, we had a normalization committee that worked towards getting us back now in Fifa'S good books. But then again, now listen to the names that are being mentioned for the normalization committee. Honestly, come on, man. Like,
I know, right?
Yeah, we need to get serious.
So which means normalization committee means that Football Kenya Federation and government and FIFA, each one of the parties involved will present names.
Will present names like that one for 2006. It was being run by that. He was called Jerome. He was caught up in this mess with.
Even I remember his name. But
yeah, he was caught up in this mess with Sepp Blatter. Yes. But yeah, he was part of the normalization committee. So yeah, it's essentially all the stakeholders. So you have FKF, you have GOK, and you have FIFA coming in and saying, okay, fine, this is what's going to form the normalization committee to get us back into the good books. And you have FIFA's handed that into Kenya. Because at the end of the day, FIFA benefits of Kenya being a upstanding member. So, look, we just need to go to back to the drawing board. I think the quick fix for this particular one is that amendment I'm talking about.
Of Sports Act 2013.
Sports Act 2013. Bring in stringent measures for somebody to become an official.
Because even as we speak right now, several federations haven't complied.
Many, and they're still
running.
Even
the clubs themselves.
And they're still running. If you ask national sporting organizations today to show you a certificate of compliance with the sports registrar, how many are going to show you? And you know me, Max, I hate this thing of government funding. I hate this thing of government funding. And this thing that you don't have money, you go to government. The government's work is not to fund federations.
It tolerates laziness.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. It tolerates laziness. So I think the quick fix, if you bring in such a law, you curb a lot of things. Because somebody who can guarantee 30% of 500-600 million shillings, si mdogo. Kazi anaweza fanya. That is somebody who has worked and can be able to put in quite a bit of work in terms of growing a sport. So, my opinion, the way we fix this thing, and essentially that is government's work, policy and legislation. Ministry of Sports in this case. Let me not say government, Ministry of Sports. I know it's part of government, but yes, that's their work, policy and legislation. Not just running all over the place and calling press conferences and I don't know saying what.
Doctor, what's the plight of players outside there? What's their feel like in terms of the suspension? Because as we speak, they are playing in Kenya Premier League, which is not recognized by CAF and FIFA. Even the winning team won't be able to represent Kenya to CAF Champions League, CAF Confed. We won't participate in Sekafa Tennis and World Cup qualifiers, though Qatar nayo unajua pia hatuendi, so World Cup ingine ni inamaanisha 2026.
Actually,
but some people saying that we could have getting suspended at least Rudy, lakini sasa player je?
Lakini sasa ukisema kwamba eti sasa tuko suspended, we go back the drawing board to 2004 ilikuwa 2006, we never learned and we've never gone back to that drawing board that we've been speaking about. Kwa hiyo ukiangalia kama saa hizi players hawezi toka, kuna wengine najua KPL says that kusign players foreigners hakuna kusign na hakuna player naenda, hata marefari na linesmen they won't go.
Lunga probably wants to join Villarreal, anaweza
huyo ni Wanje I think. Ni local players kutoka ama player kutoka nje kuja kusign our local league.
But it rarely happens.
Itakuwa ni ngumu. Kwa hivyo nilisema kwamba hiyo drawing board tunataka kurudi, hatutairudi, sidhani kama tutarudi, but nilisikia after 6 months kulikuwa nafaa kuwa na election. Maybe nitamuuliza lawyer kama bado hiyo election tunaweza fanya ama bado
haifanyika sahi.
Hata hiyo election ikifanyika FIFA
haita recognize, haifanyika sahi.
I saw retired judge Aaron Rigera meeting IBC
Juicy, I saw that.
You see, you have ever had any other country where the electoral board, the National Electoral Board is one that is involved in running a sporting organization's election?
I almost asked that question as well.
Yeah, I've seen them, even when KRU has the elections, I've seen IBC representatives there and all that. Politics is so pervasive in this country that it gets to things like sports, right? Where politics should not be an issue. It's so pervasive in this country that even issues like sports now are being affected, dogged by politics. Because the truth and the fact of the matter, guys, is the root cause of all this is the politics. And politics is what? It's somebody, in my opinion, if we talk about sports, it's not the person who has the best plans. It's the person who greases the best pockets. That's how it is in Kenya. I hear a story of, I know of a story of the 2019 KRU elections. There's a team that sponsored one of the candidates. And even that team didn't vote for that candidate.
So you sponsor someone you are not casting vote for?
They were going to vote for them. See, they were turned last minute. So it's like, Max, you sponsor me. You say Ngaro is the person who's going to be sponsoring Ngaro to run. Because that's, I don't know if it's the same thing in football, but in rugby that's what it is. A club has to sponsor a candidate.
Yes.
So yes. Max says, I'm sponsoring Ngaro to run for presidency. Chair, right? So essentially it means that Max is my supporter. But let's say Toto is my rival, she gets to Max. And she deals one or two things with Max.
She's a pass.
Max mwenyewe atanipigia kura mimi naenda amenisponsor. That's my point. That's how pervasive politics is in sports. And to kill that, in my opinion, is you just have to bring in people who can support it. You just have to, the short-term fix is for me that law.
And maybe Max, on the other hand pia, when it comes to elections, and maybe hizo za FKF, kuna ile inaitwa sijui ni, unasemanga aje hawa watu, kwamba ni delegates, sijui kama ndio nafaa kupiga kura. Man, mbona inafanyika hivyo? Unapata hao delegates kama ni 50, wote ni team white.
And delegates are representatives of the clubs.
Of the clubs.
Like he was saying.
You see now,
Chairman, secretary.
Simnona sasa Kenya nasema, are you seeing the trickle down effect of if we pass that law? Are you seeing the trickle down effect? Even the smallest of clubs in the lowest of leagues. Hata kama deni yao ni 5 million, have to guarantee 40%. 4 million. Siwezi kuwa chairman kama siwezi guarantee 4 million. You see, so my point is, and it goes back to somebody who can guarantee such amounts for a sporting organization. Number one, they're not going to let that sporting organization collapse. Because what happens, ni pesa yangu inakujua mimi kama individual. Tuanzie hapo. Number two, mtu kama huyo kuna kazi amefanya. Hata kama I'm not supporting Wizi, but nasema hata kama ni mwizi amefanya kazi. I'm not supporting it. I'm just saying it's somebody who has worked hard to get to the point where he is or she is. So that person will be able to work hard in the sporting organization. But the bigger picture for me is, you can't give that person 10,000 shillings for a vote. You can't tell that person I'll house you at Sarova and it impresses him for him to change his vote. Are you seeing the bigger picture?
I think also Robert is the one who says that, you know, elections, politics of sports is so much huge than, you know, the normal politics we're looking for to August 2020. Because delegates in 70, lakini unasikia watu wako Pan-Afric, Intercon.
Watu weko vizuri bana. Pale kuwa delegate.
Masuti ziko same.
Watu weko vizuri. And that's what we need to kill. If indeed our sports is going to go anywhere, that's what we need to kill. We need to kill the CSR in sports. It's just nasty. It's disgusting, it's nasty. I'll be very honest, I've not sat down and listened and looked at how golf does it, but because it's a very small society, it must be very organized, and that is why you have Kenya Open on the European Tour, and every sponsor is running there. Do you know, I want to bet, I could be wrong, but I want to bet that golf is the only sport that has contracted a company to do their metrics and evaluations and consumer insights. Numbers to the T. So that if I'm going to look for a financial partner, I'm going to say this is the number of people who swipe, use app, consumer insight, data analytics. They're the only guys who have done it. And by the way, global sponsors, that's what they're looking for. What are your numbers? How many people come in for your games? How many people are playing golf? They need numbers. That's how they want to see how you tap in. That's why sponsors will always look at the rest of the sports in Kenya as CSR, apart from rally and golf. Because they have the metrics.
Wow. It's been a fantastic conversation indeed with Gentleman Ngaro Kamuya, sports consultant and a lawyer, and Aruba sports analyst in the name of, you know, Toto Regi, joining us for the first time, talking about, you know, the suspension of FIFA, suspension of Kenya by FIFA, interim suspension, so we can be reinstated back if we put our house in order. We're looking forward how the government will, you know, give their rejoinder. They had to respond the way Zimbabwe did by saying, hug a transformer. Maybe we will be looking forward to see what the government will tell FIFA in terms of the suspension. It's been an honor having you on board. Thank you for coming through, and thank you for quality conversation. Looking forward to see how that development will go. And don't go, stay tuned. Of course, we've still continue English Premier League football, and, you know, Carabao Cup final set for tomorrow. Eric Aganya is already in studio. Don't go away.